Check podcasts.
The Bread and Butter Collective is a collection of hospitality professionals working together to help strengthen our industry to build strong culture, community, and sustainability.
I'm Calen McNeil.
And I'm Sam Jones. And this is the Bread and Butter Podcast.
Welcome to the Bread and Butter Podcast. I'm Calen McNeil from Big Wheel Burger. And this is
Sam Jones, also from Big Wheel Burger?
What?
Nah, might as well be.
I like it. You're repping 2% jazz.
2%
baby.
jazz. Thank you. How are you, Calen?
I'm spicy. We're gonna have a spicy one today.
I think it's going to be spicy.
Yeah,
I think the nation's kind of fired up right now.
Yeah, we're fired up.
It's snowy, so we've been pent up, and now we're fired up.
Yeah, the snow. It's interesting when you live in a city that doesn't usually get snow, and then it gets snow. And I mean, more and more, I guess it's about the same. Like this, well, it depends. We've only got another month of winter for here. Like in March, it doesn't usually snow.
Yeah.
So the month of February, maybe we'll get it. Maybe this will just be it. Which would be bad.
I hope so, because my tires are as bald as hand-cut Pirellis. You know, there's like, they really...
What is a hand-cut Pirelli?
A hand-cut
like
Pirelli tire? Yeah, they hand-cut them so
out of
they're
rubber?
like... Yeah, for racing. They're just slick.
Oh.
And yeah, my tires were
Is that
awful.
like a racing term?
Yeah, I think so. I know, maybe I'm making it up, which would be just about
well,
right. But
we got to get a counter of things that we make up. And then we should actually evaluate. We can go back and figure out what is close to truth, like what percentage. Like, were we 90% true?
Oh, I think we're
30% true.
I think we're 80-20. I think, and that's all we can hope for. But anyway, on Monday with my bald ass tires, I get out to my coffee roastery, which is out on the peninsula.
Yeah, Keating Crossing.
And I get out there by 5 a.m. The roads are clear. Everything's fine. I'm like, that was
no problem.
Nothing.
Yeah. What was I afraid of?
What was I afraid of? Well, I ended up being abandoned out there. I had to have a sleepover in my roaster.
No.
Yeah, so I went to the grocery store, got some food.
You know, there's cabs and Ubers.
Not to Metchosin.
Oh, yeah, I guess.
From Central Sandwich to Metchosin is...
Well, I'd be like, you might as well get a hotel room, I guess, if you're going to pay an Uber to go out there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I've got a really warm, comfortable environment.
Yeah.
And
Do you have a couch there? I got to come out. I haven't been out there to see it.
I made a couch. I got a couple of really big, black, comfy chairs
for
for my office. And I just kind of
put
pushed them together. And my good friend who lives out in that area brought me a sleeping bag.
Oh.
And I had a neck pillow in my car because, you know,
who
doesn't travel with a
Are
neck
you going to
pillow?
make yourself more resilient?
I'm going to buy new tires.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Buy new tires, but what about setting up for those emergency occasions?
Yeah.
Like a bed or sleeping bag or a
I'm
pillow?
going to keep a sleeping bag. At
Maybe
my
a fridge?
roaster.
Do you have a fridge? Do you have food there?
I've got food. I got a fridge. I got a stove out there. I got a coffee.
I got to come out and see it. It's embarrassing that I haven't been out there.
It's okay. It's just, you know.
Maybe you don't want me out there.
No, I'd love to have you out there. I'll make you coffee. I've got a little
I
cupping
invited
room
myself,
upstairs.
and you're like, no, it's okay.
No, I don't
really
want to
need
clean up for
Yeah.
company. No, it was quite the adventure, and I've had sleepovers at other coffee roasters just because I've had to in other parts of the world and stuff. So it's not my first coffee roaster sleepover, but it was the first one at my coffee roaster.
Your spot. How long have you had that spot out there?
3 years.
3 years now.
Yeah, coming up to 3 years.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, and you still haven't been there.
I know,
It's
it's
been 3
embarrassing. This is what I'm
years.
getting at. I don't think I've
Calen.
been invited either. I'm just saying.
Yeah, you don't need an invitation. You just have to show up.
So it is my fault.
Yeah,
Didn't need
it's not your fault. You just didn't know you.
Yeah, we're not going to play the blame game.
There's no need when there's so much blame to push around for other things that we want to talk about.
Yes,
let's get into the blame game a little bit when it comes to tariffs.
Well, it's kind of one of the things. Okay, so yes, we're going to talk about tariffs, but the inference of blame game, like the idea that this is like there's a people, there's a group that is most responsible. I just think, we talk about blame because I think some of the stuff that we're going to talk about or that we need to do is probably just good practice.
Yeah.
And I think, just because usually we talk about how it's been going in our week, and we got our year end back from the accountant, and I was like shocked. Not in a good way.
No.
Where it's like, well, part of the thing in business, like for us, how we set up, we have a bunch of internal accounting stuff that we do, or, we do our own, we have a team that does our bookkeeping. Then it goes to a CFO that I share with my brother, who kind of formats it and does cash flow and just does this, makes it look good if I need to present it to somebody or if I need to see it. But then our accountant, which does our year end, kind of does all the amortization and all this kind of stuff. And we closed the store last year. So there was an impact on that because we bought all the stuff and then it's not amortized yet. So when you sell it we bought it all for X and we sold it for Y. The difference after the amortization, you have to write off. So that's got to come off. And in this case, it was like 240 grand. So that comes right off the bottom line. But the operational one was the most shocking. Was the worst year we've ever had by like 10x, which is, and we've done a lot of stuff. Like we've added, we had a new POS, so we have way more data. Then all of the numbers are now consolidated. And then we started our app, like our sort of like our customer loyalty app. So now a lot of people are getting into it. We've been promoting it. So it works out to probably around a 10% discount, like when you factor in what you're getting for the points. And it's basically food. So it's 10% of our retail, but it's really our food cost that is the cost.
Right.
So it's 30% of the 10%. But that number's grown, which is good. But then we've also have our Uber stuff, and we've been doing BOGOs and
What's BOGOs?
Buy one, get one.
Oh, okay.
So, and some of it's funded by Uber, and some of it's funded by us, and some of it's co-funded. So, and we've just been kind of like we've been kind of playing with it and experimenting, but not really doing the data analysis component of it. Because we've been focused on other stuff like closing Nanaimo, opening Courtney, and then you've got all the costs associated with opening a store. So it was alarming. So then in comes this tariff thing. So the last 10 days, and obviously I knew, like for people that ever listen to me or follow me on socials or ever my friend will know that I have been studying and following Donald Trump for 35 years. As soon as I was interested in business, I was like, he was in my sort of like this American guy, and I could never figure out how he made money. And he said he was a billionaire and all this stuff. Typically, the richest people in the world sell something. Like actually sell not just something, they sell a lot of things.
Like he sells steaks and ties and stuff.
Exactly. Anything that he's ever sold has never worked. So you're just wondering, how does he do it? And then when you look at real estate, like it's like he's built like it's not even, he owns golf courses, but golf courses aren't profitable businesses. So you get some lift in the value of the land and stuff like. But it's real estate has a very high ease of kind of criminal behavior and I want to say this loosely because fact checking and all this stuff, but you can money launder easily in real estate. So, and in construction, right? So just briefly going back, just so I can get a base of why I think what I think. Back in the day, the New York mob controlled a lot of the crime that was going on in New York and in the States and, the Chicago mob, but it was sort of like the Italian mob kind of thing. In comes Rudy Giuliani, who's, I guess, the attorney general at the time and, the DA at the time. And he basically got rid of a big chunk of the Italian mob, and what replaced it was the Russian mob. Okay. In comes Trump, who has been bankrupt numerous times. He's pretty much the only guy alive during the 80s that had 5 casinos go bankrupt when all the other casinos were off the charts. And me coming from the gambling world, I understand how casinos make money. I also understand how they treat their high rollers and how they incentivize
and the history, how they built up
how they built
industry,
all that stuff, and very criminal leaning, money laundering leaning, all of that kind of stuff. And so he failed in casinos. He didn't, even though I think he's an incompetent business person, I don't think those failures were about that. I think those failures were about money laundering.
I mean, I'm not a casino owner, but I figure it must be really difficult. You got to really challenge yourself to fail at owning a casino.
It can happen through incompetence, over leveraging, all that kind of stuff. So that's where the leveraging comes in, because a lot of the bank stuff that he does, he overinflates the values. So he borrows money at a higher value than is actually there, right? And that's a crime. Like, and that's why he was charged in New York and convicted to do with the Stormy Daniels payments.
Right, because you can't.
He falsified his financial records, which they found out while they're investigating an election payment issue. Because basically it was an illegal election contribution, the payment to Stormy Daniels, because he did that in order to protect his presidential run in 2016. So that is sort of, so in the concept of, I'm a left-leaning person, so I hate Donald Trump. No, I've known and wondered. I mean, when Donald Trump became on The Apprentice,
right,
he was bankrupt again.
That's why he probably did it, right?
Well, this is all engineered, right? So Mark Burnett, who produced the show at the time before that, was the whole Apprentice thing came because he was going to produce an Apprentice show with Vladimir Putin in Russia, based in Russia. So that was it. So then that didn't happen, but then in comes Donald Trump in the US, and then he's basically has the Apprentice show, which he made hundreds of millions, but it was more about showing America that he was a successful business person.
Right.
So, and this is why I know this, because I knew about him before and I had studied him and thought about him and was wondering, like, this guy's a criminal, right? Back then. And then we're talking like in the late 90s. So he comes and does this. Then I'm watching the show. I'm like, oh, maybe he is something, because he's got the glamour and so it's basically designed to convince people he was a successful business person,
right? Which
in politics, public image and all that stuff, this is a long game, right? This is a long game design, in my opinion, to have him elevated as some kind of business genius when he's absolutely not. Right? Like, he's a genius at promotion. He's a genius at creating chaos and gaslighting and just create all this drama and threatens to sue people. And this is his style. Like, how he managed the U.S. before, same way. We are on steroids now. So he is literally lighting fires for no reason. Like, none of what he's doing makes sense. Him doing tariffs do not make sense. We have North American trade agreement, right?
Which he created and said was the best deal ever created.
That he created. So now he's saying he's doing the tariffs because we have a fentanyl and illegal immigrant crisis coming from Canada. 1% of the fentanyl that comes in the United States comes from Canada. That's the data, the stats, right? So we've now spent $1.5 billion creating this surveillance on our border to tell Trump that we're doing something. So we're literally lighting $1.5 billion on fire. But we had already signed that agreement with Biden. Like, we already said that we're going to do this. So this happened in 2024. So we then are saying to him, this is what we're going to do. And now we've increased a little bit, and he's saying, okay, that's okay. Doing the same thing with Mexico. Yeah. He's threatening Panama Canal. He's threatening the Greenland, right? Like, all of this is just noise. Now
and Palestine now.
Now he's going to say he's going to turn Gaza into like the Riviera. Yeah. Right? And move all these Palestinians where? This is their home. Right. Anyway. Yeah. So, but all of this stuff, like, look what we're talking about. We talked about 10 different things that he's done in a week. And none of this is happening. Like, I don't think that we'll actually ever have tariffs. I actually probably think it's 50-50 whether he'll actually impose tariffs. But what he's doing, he's creating the news cycle. He's creating the drama. Everybody is freaking out. And what is actually happening is the government is being raided. Like, the U.S. government
Elon
is
Musk
being
has his little
raided.
kids going
He's got
in
kids, technical people in these places. So U.S. Aid is an organization where they fund all their social stuff around the world.
there. Yeah, they're soft diplomacy.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, they're preventing AIDS outbreaks, and they're helping, and they're working with a bunch of NGOs, and it's around $40 billion to $50 billion a year budget that they just go and do these things.
And to be balanced, I'm sure there's a lot of inefficiencies in the system.
Governments are inefficient.
It doesn't mean you take it out at the knees or the ankles, right?
When you're robbing somebody, you tell them you're doing it for this reason, but you're actually doing it for this reason. So just like when you talk about creating drama, that's what all these people are chasing their tails about. It's bait and switch. It's like magic, right?
It kind of brings
Create
people
smoke over here and there's fire over
the
here.
Negotiating table, because it makes it so that we don't have a choice. Like, the threat might not be real, but the possibility of the threat is real enough that we have to capitulate.
Yeah, but okay, so I don't want to confuse it's important not no, but it's important not, because you're totally right. Like, your comment that you just made is exactly right. But you don't want to. This is how people think. It's like, well, this is a legitimate. He's threatening this. This could happen. We got to deal with this, right? Legit. Yeah. But all of our eyes are off the ball, right?
Yeah. Watch this.
Yeah, exactly. While he's doing that, so it seems like, yes, and you do have to deal with it, because it's real. Like, if he invaded us, we'd have to deal with it. If he threatened to invade us, we'd have to deal with it. Like, but that's not why he's doing it. He's doing it to basically undermine, destroy all of the institutions of government, which all those people that voted for him, every single person, not only in the United States, and this is why I'm now engaged in a way that, in my mind, that I'm never going to be unengaged with, because this is a blatant destruction of the U.S. government to emulate what happens in the banana republics, like Russia, like the Russian oligarch. Russia has the same GDP as Canada, more or less. Russia has how many oligarchs, billionaires? Yeah. We have like a handful of billionaires in Canada. The only way these guys are billionaires is theft, government theft.
Yeah, they took everything.
Yeah,
was collapsed,
and there's nothing left.
The Soviet Union.
And then, just like, with with Trump's threats of trade wars and all this stuff, Putin, nuclear war, and everybody goes, "Oh no, he's a nuclear power." Guess what? It takes money to invest in maintaining your nuclear arsenal, and all the money's gone. Do you think they've been spending? It would be like billions of dollars to maintain their nuclear arsenal. Do you think they're spending, or they have the money to spend on that? Right? Which is scary on one hand, because how are you securing it, whatever. But the other hand is, how effective is any of this stuff? And my guess, after 20 years of like complete robbery, like Russia or Putin's been in power, I think 24 years or 25 years or something like that, since 2000 or thereabouts. Like, it's not real. But yet all these people march around. So your question is nuclear war? Yeah, that's a threat. Is it nuclear power? Yeah, it technically is. How effective it is? That's my question. And I don't think it is very effective. But you know how it's effective? The threat. Do you know what is effective with Trump? The threat.
The threat.
Right? So, and you have to do all those things. Just like you said, we have to go and think about it. But the point of it is, we need to just go back to what's happening. This is the destruction of a democracy in the United States. And you can argue all you want about how, capitalist democracy is not effective and all these issues and all this. It doesn't really matter. So how true of the democracy the U.S. is, it technically is still a democracy and has been a democracy for a long time. Where it is now and where it's going to be like a week from now, 2 weeks from now, a month from now, we're literally looking at a complete annihilation of the democratic principle. So, do you know how quick he shut down USAID? And he's not even allowed to do it, because the USAID is a program. Like, a president can't, through executive order, shut down programs that have been launched by Congress. It can only happen through Congress.
It has to go through Congress.
It has to go through Congress. Like, he can't do what he did, but he did it. And now all the people have all been laid off. They've all been told to come home from all over the world. you've got these people building programs to combat hunger, to combat disease, to be aware of what's happening, to work and develop, in like to grow your exports as a country. You have to go into these countries and you have to build some infrastructure. You got to make sure they have running water. You got to make sure they have electricity and power source. You got to make sure that they're not at war. All this stuff, and that's how you build wealth for your country, but also for the destination.
Yeah, so China does that very effectively, and it feels like the Americans are just leaving it to them.
They are now. So it was like a month ago, all those institutions, they were already weakened because of the 4 years with Trump, because he did that then. So the State Department is another issue where he left like 800 positions open, like appointed positions, like they're political, in the State Department that
just open,
just
not,
vacant,
not filled.
Never filled.
Yeah.
So in the 1.0, he weakened a lot of things. So then what you have to do when you go back and you're like, okay, you know, you have to go backfill, which is a ton of work. Like it takes a long time to build that corporate memory. Mm-hmm. It takes a long time to build that infrastructure. It takes a very short time to undo it. Like you just fire everybody and then there's nobody there. And all those programs just are dead in the vine. So fast forward 4 years, how are you going to, like, those people are gone. They're doing other things. The programs, like you have, like,
how do you
these
build
have
that
taken
back?
decades to build, right? All since post World War II. Part of the reason why we've had so much peace is because of post World War II, all of these things have been built. And he literally, and the only motive, like, ask, why would he do that? Why would he do that? Because it enriches the powerful. It creates an oligarchy in the U.S. And it's basically criminals. It's harder to do crime now because of you know, IT and data and information and phones. And so where do you, if you're a criminal, how do you enrich yourself? You get into government, because that's the last bastion. And there's trillions of dollars sitting there, as Elon Musk is finding out, because he's in the Treasury Department right now, raiding it.
It's all the taxpayers' money.
Yeah.
It's not. It's a free for all.
And he's an unelected official. Like, so it's U.S. So obviously we're in Canada. We got to be concerned about what we're doing. But as I've said since 2015 and 2014, I follow this sort of like historian and political, like she's studies kleptocracies and dictatorships and autocracies and all the different forms. So that's her background. She has a doctorate in it. Sarah Kinzier.
Okay.
And she's written a book, and she was like alarming about the shift, like since Bush. Like this has been happening a long time, right?
It certainly has.
And the undermining, and then the justice system, and then the blocking of the court the Supreme Court, and this hasn't happened when Trump showed up, right?
No, he's taking advantage.
The door was open to the point to allow him to come. Yeah. He set himself up. This has been a long game, and basically, the end result is authoritarian fascism, and this is history repeats itself. Fourth Turning. Yeah. Buy the book, read it. It's going to give you an understanding of what's happening, and it's also going to give you some hope, because we're at the destruction part. So World War II was the last fourth turning that we've had 80 years ago, approximately,
somewhere around there,
right? And that left everybody. Killed millions and millions of people. You know, obviously we know the history of what happened, and 6 to 7 million Jews were killed. And then that was never again. Guess what? Yeah. Everything that's happening now is going to result in something, right? He's deporting immigrants. So this is where you get back to how it affects us, right? So the U.S. is our largest trading partner.
Yep, they are.
And we're their largest trading partner too.
By a huge factor.
By like a country mile. There's nobody even close. And it makes sense. Proximity, even when it compares to Mexico, our trade with them is like, I don't know what the numbers are, but let's say double, right? And when you look at the immigration, so the globe has a problem or a challenge with immigration and workforce supply, and different people do different jobs in the society. As food producers and restaurants and coffee shops and hospitality, we rely on immigrant labor. We rely on it here in Canada.
Whether
we rely
it's
on it
directly or indirectly.
indirectly. Like we do not get lettuce, tomatoes, pickle. We don't get any of that stuff without immigrant labor.
Yeah.
And in the U.S., it's a lot of it is seasonal. It's all seasonal, actually, obviously. So depending on where it's warm in California to Texas to New Mexico to all that, and then into Mexico, and it just all works in an ecosystem. So the labor that comes up from South America and Mexico is there. It's seasonal, and they've got they're there legally because they're immigrant worker. They're on a special visa. And then you also have this whole underground immigrant that is undocumented people, right? And they're working, they're all paying cash, and a lot of them pay taxes. The amount of money that I think it's something like $10 to $20 billion a year goes into the tax system from illegal immigrants.
Wow.
Right?
That doesn't sound very illegal to me.
No, they're paying taxes,
right?
So then now you do these raids. So guess who's not showing up? And this is right now we're in the winter, so it's not really growing season. But as we get into the growing season, and California's probably starting early because it's obviously warmer down there, people aren't showing up to work. So because they're afraid they're going to get raided.
Well, and agriculture is the easiest place to raid because they're outdoors, they're open fields, so
they know where they are.
Seen. I mean, there's all kinds of logistical reasons why agricultural workers feel afraid to go to work.
Yeah. So what's going to happen? We are going to run out of stuff that we take for granted. And how are we going to get it? We aren't going to.
Americans are going to too.
100%. We all are.
The fruit, everything's just going to fall to the ground.
Exactly. It's going to go rotten. It's going to go unpicked. So then we have food security issues, right? Because it's not just about what we can get to sell. It's about what we need to eat. So once you destabilize that, so while you're doing that, you're undermining the safety net that governments provide. So for us, it's it's welfare and it's EI and it's all that kind of stuff. In the U.S., it's Medicaid, Medicare. It's all those entitlement programs that they have
all
to help support,
block,
which predominantly go to red states. So and some of the books I've read over the years, and this is the other thing: read a freaking book, guys and girls. Get off social media, start reading some books. Figure out, because that's the only way you're going to actually learn and not be gaslit is if you actually just read books, especially books that were read or written ages ago that actually documented it and then talked about it, because nothing's changed. The only thing that changes is our perception and the narrative. That's it. The data doesn't change. Like how humans interact with growing food and farming, it's the same. It's static. It doesn't change. What changes is our idea of what's happening, right? Because of who's telling us and what information we find out or read. Or let guide us. Right. So these are the things that are going to directly impact us. So we talk about tariffs. It's like, okay, yes, tariffs are going to be bad. What's going to be worse is what they're doing to immigrants in the United States, period. And they're canceling the DEI programs, right?
Yes.
So this has a direct impact on the globe because you literally are removing these programs and you're actually actively undermining the people that have gotten jobs through these programs. And this is the idea. This is the thing. And, I don't know who needs to hear this or what, but the whole DEI concept is prior to these programs being put in place, people were looking at their skin and saying, you could have been the most qualified person in the world and not got the job because of your skin color.
Even if you have a
slightly
your foreign
gender.
Name, right?
Yes,
slightly foreign name or
all
gender,
of that stuff.
Your application just isn't even looked at.
That's right, depending on who's looking at it, right? So the reason why North America, like the United States, well, Canada's like, because we've always been more like that. There hasn't been the degree. There's sexism, there's racism, there's all that stuff that exists here. But our hiring processes and all that kind of stuff, it's already for longer periods of time been balanced. And we've had inclusivity, and there's inclusivity training. And the idea isn't that you are, because the mere thought of this is sexist, it's racist. It's the idea that DEI hires aren't qualified or that program isn't beneficial is an asinine.
Yeah.
Like it's completely asinine, and it's misogynistic, and it's racist, and it's all that kind of stuff, because what you're actually doing is leveling a playing field that was so unlevel for ever, right? It was unlevel forever. So what you're then saying is you can't do this. You have to judge people on their merits, right? And you know what? To make up for that, we are going to, because of the population. So if you have 30% of a 20% of a workforce that is in a certain, maybe they're Hispanic or African American or female or whatever the imbalance was historically, you're then saying, okay, we need to make 30% of the workforce of this 20% group from qualified candidates.
Only from qualified
so
candidates.
That your mix of people represent the community that you're in and also the skill level.
And
right?
then that mix is making future decisions on hiring
100%.
with a different perspective. It's
100%.
not just a white male perspective. Yes. It's a whoever you are perspective.
Yes, and based on, you have to have the skills.
Yeah.
Like, so.
And at the time, you do have to inject that into it. Like you have to inject some diversity. Otherwise, what's to say that a company run strictly by white males aren't just going to continue on doing what they're doing? I mean, because from their perspective,
yes,
they're probably fine. But from everyone else's perspective,
because their perspective comes from a broken system that, like if you're
and their own self-interest.
Imagine an organization, especially in the United States and Canada to probably a lesser degree, but we're actually probably as diverse, different groups of populations, that kind of stuff. But say you've got 90%, say a company's got 90% male employees, and 70% of those 90% are white males. But the population isn't represented that way. Like that's not what the population is. So what are you doing? So you're saying those 70% of white males are the smartest, best in that class. I call absolute bullshit.
Yeah.
Because if white males make up 40% or 30% of the population, but they make up 70% of your business,
then you don't have the most qualified person.
You do absolutely 100% don't.
Yeah.
Right? So this idea, and then when you say to people, well, why do you feel this way, or what are you doing? And then you tell them that it's racist or misogynist, or like it just is, and it's structurally that way. And then they get, oh, well, blah, 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 and you can't, blah, and it's like, dude, it's just statistics, it's logic, it's facts. Just like 30% of our prison system is made up of Indigenous people that make up less than 10% of our population. So you're saying that Indigenous people are all criminals, or they're like 5x more likely to commit crimes than us.
And that's south of the border is the same thing with the African American population
and Hispanic population, people of color. Like it's just illogical. It makes no sense. But what you do have is you have overrepresented population, which means that people are making decisions about these people. And there's some structural stuff, like the reservation system and the Indian Act in Canada is horrific. And that's what's created these outcomes. The homeless population is similar. Like the biggest represented population in homeless are Indigenous. It's not a coincidence, right? So you've created this reservation system. They're away from economic value. You take them away from their culture, and you perpetuated this thing. You need to undo it, because it not only hurts them, like it mostly hurts. It hurts everybody. It hurts society, hurts business, because they have so much to offer. Like so much to offer in so many different ways. And that's the same with any underrepresented population group. It needs to represent who's in the community and who's that. Right. And then you get into, all of it is based on prejudice. All of it. Yeah. So to say that you're going to remove it. So removing that DI, and then you talk about the immigration, going back to the immigration thing, you are literally going to be unraveling what has created so much wealth and prosperity, not only for the Americans, but the globe, right? So then what?
Yeah, we make all of our profits off the backs of other people.
100%. All those billion, like Bezos, Musk, Tim Cook, Zuckerberg, all those guys have made their billions on the back of people and not paying people well enough, discriminating against people, and creating an unfair playing field in their media. In traditional media, advertising companies back in the day made up, before the internet, they made up 100% of all the advertising dollars. They just took it all, right? And they ran it and were efficient, whatever. That shift, like a traditional advertising company now, like I don't even know what the data is, but it's been, that industry has been gutted on the traditional standpoint because all of the advertising dollars, like billions and billions, trillions of dollars have been moved to online. Yeah, that's controlled by Meta, right? Not very many people advertise on Twitter anymore because it's a dumpster fire.
Well, and all the advertisers
Google
can go F themselves, according to Musk anyway, right?
Of course, because he doesn't give a crap.
Because he's just going to take.
But all their wealth, but the thing about it is like, and this is where people, you know, when you're talking about what you can do, and I talk about this too to my wife because, you know, she scrolls and her feeds and her algorithm are just make her laugh, and she's, you know, I'm like, okay, did you see this? And she's like, no, I don't really see that. And I'm like, why is my feed just this dumpster fire? So it's obviously my interest group or whatever, but all of that perpetuates all these oligarchs to do what they're doing. And when they line up behind a fascist and a fascist regime that's looking to destroy all that for their benefit, this isn't about, oh, we're going to make America great again. We're going to go back. Like, when was America ever great? When? Like, when they had slavery, when women couldn't vote? Like, at what point was it great? It was never great. It's been getting better because of these programs and these things, DEI and all this stuff. Like, it's been, so when has it been great for a person of color? Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, never. Right? Has it improved a lot in the last 20, 30 years? Yes. But when is it great? It hasn't been great. No. When was it great for white people and men? When was it great for white men?
From day one.
Day one.
Day one. That's why we came here to make it better.
But guess what? It's not as great for them now. So it's make white men great again. That's what it is. It's make white men great again. That's the only, that's it. So how do you appeal to white men? Racism. They're taking your jobs. They're doing all this stuff, which is all BS. The world is, they have wealth today because of all these programs where they wouldn't have had it if they didn't do it.
And once they have it, they don't need them anymore. So they're just done.
But they do. They need them to create these tribes, right? So if everybody's fighting with each other, nobody's looking up to them. Like, literally, there should be a boycott on Facebook, Instagram, Google. Just stop it. Stop buying a Tesla. The reason why he's the richest man in the world is because he's created stock fraud with Tesla. Sure. That's it. Like, his company, and it's becoming more clear, and this is why he's even more involved in this now. He spent $270 million getting Trump elected, and now he is the president of the United States. So you're talking about one guy that has probably 5 or 6 companies. He's got Starlink, he's got SpaceX, he's got
boring
coal, which is again just to gaslight the rapid transit that was going to go from California to sorry, my phone, I didn't turn my phone off. California to across the states. They were trying to kill it, or just in California. So he created a boring company, which was just a Ponzi. Like, it was just to kill that. Just like when he says that he's going to have automated cars, like his automated cars, he's got like Tesla, like 10 years ago was state of the art. But when he's rode on that, he said, oh, your car can be a robo taxi when you're not using it.
Yeah.
Right?
It can pay for the lease.
It's going to pay for this. We can do this and we can do this. We're an IT company. We're not a car company. So his valuation went through the frickin' roof on the basis of that. Then it started collapsing. And then guess what? He's all of a sudden now invest 270 million into Trump. And now everybody, because that's how you're going to, if you want to get money and influence, what do?
You grease wheels.
You grease the wheels.
Yeah.
So who's greasing Tesla's wheels? Let's look at Saudi Arabia. Let's look at Russia. Let's look at China. Let's look at all these companies dumping money, propping up his stock. His stock has the combined value of all of the automakers in the globe.
Just in Tesla.
Just in Tesla.
What?
Yes. All of it.
Oh, cow.
Stock the value of his company is the combination of all of them. I think he made 90 billion last year on Tesla or something.
And that's not real money though, is it?
No, I'm talking about just the profits,
stock,
but it's not. His profits come from government grants and subsidies. And because if you drive a Tesla, you can sell carbon credits. So he's selling carbon credits, and that's where he gets the majority of his profit. His sales are down, all of it, but his stock price is like through the freaking moon. It's a Ponzi scheme.
Do you think now that he's the president, he's gonna remove all the hurdles to make his cars totally automatic now? Because they just have to flip a switch, but all the regulations and
No, it's all BS, man.
just not even
there.
Not even there.
Like if you look at Google Car, like I think it's Waymo or they're already in multiple cities and they work. I've had friends go in them and they're like, this is an automated what he's saying that Tesla will do, there's already companies that are so far ahead of him in it. But yet he's having these big glamorous things and people think he's a genius.
Well, he hasn't invented anything.
He's not invented anything.
He's just copied everything he's done, right?
So, yeah. But anyway, you have these people in power. We're in control of their wealth because we support them. And until we actually make real steps, like as a collective, and just get off of it. And I'm like, read a book. So what I've done, preaching my own stuff, I've talked about how 1 year I read like 25 books and it was actually informed the next 3 or 4 years of my life. So now I'm going back. I've read 3 so far this year.
Oh,
right.
Fantastic.
So started, but off social media, right? And replacing it with reading, which is actually great because I'm learning a whole bunch of stuff.
I did that last night. I was scrolling. I'm like, I can't do this anymore. I put it down and I picked up a book that I've been wanting to read for a long time.
Yeah.
And I was like, I got into it and I was like, reading books is really entertaining as well.
Because you're not getting inflamed and all this stuff and you're in it. Forget about the screens, right? So my sleep's improved. So I've been doing it 10 days now.
Okay.
Because I used to watch Netflix and put myself to sleep and I wake up in the middle of the night, I turn it on to put myself back to sleep. Like it's so destructive to your sleep.
Oh, PSA moment. Everyone check your Netflix account. It just went up to $24 or something, but you can opt not to do that and get some advertising for $7 or $8 a month. So
just stop.
Or you can just cancel your Netflix.
Well, and there's some extreme, they're so ingrained and some of it is needed, like social media, like even when we're looking at advertising. So let's bring this discussion back to how it impacts our industry and then what we could do to better prepare ourselves for what's going to come. Right. And nobody can predict the future, but based on history repeating itself, it's a pretty decent roadmap. You can think how it's going to manifest itself. I'm not sure, but the next probably 10 to 15 years are going to be as much of a dumpster fire or worse than what's happening now. So
it's all going to come true. Like everything that's happening is going to feel a lot more real in a couple of years.
Yeah. And
it has a chance to settle in. And
part of it is we've been privileged to live in the part of the world where we've lived and had a neighbor that was the bully pulpit. And, people talk about, well, U.S. has done all this stuff, blah, blah, blah. But you know what they've done is they've also maintained the higher authority and the moral authority over things. And the obvious bad actors have been put into place because it's the right thing to do. Yeah. They're undermining things all the time and it's not relevant. So now all of that is off the table. They're literally like, we're not the moral authority. You guys do whatever you want to do. We're going to the economic impact of that is staggering. Like the reason why the US is so wealthy is because they've done what they've done. And the reason why the world is so stable for this long time is because they've had somebody like that has kept the checks and balances in place.
Kind of protecting
Guardrails.
trade after the Second World War. Their navy was the only one existing, and so protecting all those trade routes after the Second World War made America the
safe
economic power.
Yeah, an economic powerhouse.
The only one, as every other country that was involved had to pay punitive damages and rebuild.
Yeah.
America didn't have to rebuild anything.
No.
And
they benefited from selling and
took all this money from
and technology and all that kind of stuff, and oil and gas and all this kind of stuff that they did that built them. And then you've got criminals that have no understanding of how government works. Like the people that vote these people in just start looking at it like, oh, he's going to make great. I'm like, dudes, you do not understand. If you do not understand the function of government and all of the little things that they take care of that everybody doesn't even see. If you get a bank, if you're a farmer in Oklahoma or Nebraska and you get a bank loan for your farm, it's government guaranteed.
Yeah.
But you don't know that. You're just, I'm applying for this loan and blah, 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 blah. And then you go to the farmer when he's announcing this big thing. If it's, I'm using farming, but it could be anything. Like you're going to build a new plant for whatever factory you're doing and you're in these red states. Guess what? That loan is government guaranteed and backed so that it allows people to get jobs in those parts of the world, and they're heavily subsidized, right? Farmers is a prime example. When they put trade tariffs on Chinese products, the farmers were, the soybean farmers for one, were like, they had to be subsidized. They were literally like, because China put it back on them and they're like, I can't sell any more soybeans, for example, or whatever.
Yeah.
And then the government's backing it and doing it. But it's done through these organizations that make it look like, I'm a super entrepreneur, I'm successful. But they would never have the loan. They would never have the money. They would never be able to do it in that state, right? So that's all a function and form of government. And the same with Medicare and healthcare outcomes and this language that Canada wants to be a 51st state. And so...
that America wants Canada to become.
No, but I know. But the issue is, I don't care what America wants. There are people in our country that think that's a good idea, right? Or like, I'm okay with that, or whatever. But that is like not understanding the differences for one, but also the form and function of government and what it does, and what stability brings. Like our universal health care, the way we think about the world is a result of how our governments function and taking care of us, right? And with decisions we've made with our tax dollars, right? So the idea that you're like, especially when it's being run by these people that are just criminals. Trump set up a meme coin.
Yeah.
That earned him $50 billion. So, and there's no checks and balances. Guess who's buying the meme coins?
All
of the bad actors, right? I support it, sure. Like you can look at all these people who, I'm going to buy $20, $100. That's not the problem. The problem is the grift, right? It's buying the government. In the old time, he had a hotel in Washington, D.C. where the Saudis would just pump. They'd be book out floors that they didn't even stay in because it just was dumping money to Trump. Right. So now you got a meme coin dumping money to Trump.
He's got a meme coin. His wife has a meme coin.
Sure. I need a meme coin.
Yeah, we all need a meme coin.
Right. You're getting back to how it affects us. So the immigration thing and the food supply thing is like alarming. Like,
so if America has a food security issue because of this, that means, and there's
when we already have food security issues, like in normal operations. Yeah.
When grocery stores have empty shelves in the United States, how much are we going to be influenced? Are we going to lose 80% of our produce?
I don't know what the data. We're going to have empty shelves. We're not going to be able to get product. And supply chains, well, just think about COVID, right? Like how destabilizing shutting things down are. So that was like catastrophic economically. Yeah. The fact that everybody was going through it was a good thing. But imagine Imagine a world in Europe where they have a different food supply chain that it's already being impacted by Putin, which he's going to be doing even more. Like when US pulls out of NATO, which they'll do,
Yeah.
right? Then Putin is like basically Europe and Canada are on our own, right?
Yeah.
Like we're, and Canada is sandwiched between Russia and the United States. Like, guys, like I don't know what, I don't want to be a fearmonger here, but we need to really think about food security, food sustainability in our regions. Let's just deal with Victoria, right?
Yeah.
So one of the things I've done a lot in the last couple of years is look at farming. And the Fed Urban Agriculture is a nonprofit charity. We bought a urban farm, so that was done by Topsoil.
Right.
Chris Heldreth is an amazing guy who created this model, and it's basically to grow food in urban settings, right? So they're planter boxes. There's a whole system that allows you to do it. So we've bought that farm. So the amount that we grow, I don't know, maybe we grow 20,000 pounds a year or something. But we're looking at creating a farm at the airport. The airport's looking at that. Okay. There's a rooftop farm at our place that uses the greens to feed the people that need to eat at our place. We're looking at the Songhees. We're talking to the Songhees about doing a garden there. So this is the kind of stuff that we need to do. We need to be supporting farmers. We also need to be making sure that none of their food goes to waste, right? So production facilities. And that's where I've talked to Kool-Aid, where they just built this facility that's a wraparound services. I think it's going to house I think it's got 150 apartments. And they're going to have a production kitchen.
Is it that one off of Burnside or Gorge or something?
I think so.
It's that new build.
Yeah, it's
right?
brand new. Like it just finished.
And they built they're opening. Actually.
Yeah, they built a production kitchen that has capacity. So I'm talking to them about processing food because that's the other thing. And Saanich actually, the municipality of Saanich was talking to me about the worthiness of investing in a production kitchen for farmers to produce and can freeze all the stuff,
like tertiary products,
like create food out of their stuff before it goes to waste. So I think the numbers, like we throw away 40% of the food. Right?
Is that from
that's a stat we're making up?
Yeah,
but I think it is 40%.
And grocery stores, same deal, right?
So our foundation supports Loaves and Fishes in Nanaimo. Loaves and Fishes has an infrastructure where they go to grocery stores and take their ugly food and food before it expires, or food that doesn't sell before their expiration date. They then bring it back to Loaves and Fishes. They distribute it to food banks that have production kitchens all up and down the island. So it's an important part of the infrastructure for food security here.
Do all grocery stores participate in that?
No,
or are there ones that don't?
I don't know the answer to that. Okay. Some do and some don't. So without getting into the details of who does and who doesn't, all do. They all need to.
Well, and the ones that don't, maybe we should think about where we're spending our money more.
Well, exactly.
Right.
Because I think it's very important to first know what you need to support and then actually support those organizations that do it. So without worrying about the global, like looking at Canada or looking at the US or whatever. So we buy at Big Wheel Burger, we buy greens from the Fed Urban Garden, which was formerly Topsoil. And that's right beside Bay Street. You look to the left, there's a beautiful, and it is magnificent. You stand in it and you just feel alive. And this is in a downtown city setting. And it was built on, or it's made or created on land that was basically contaminated land.
That's right. It was.
Right?
Yeah.
So there's no soil. So what's happened over that, I think the farm's been there 8 years. What's happened over that time is because of all the watering and the nutrients that have come through the soil and the plants that go into the surface and get absorbed by the ground, there's things growing there again.
That weren't
before.
Well,
it was
right?
vacant and barren for, 100 years ago, I think it was a pulp mill.
Right.
Right? And the land has been barren since then.
Yeah.
So, and nothing can grow on there. You can't, but now it's starting to grow as a result of this. So the government is looking at how true that statement is, but how effective that is to reclaim properties like old gas stations. So I own property, or Big Wheel owns property in Courtney, where we were going to build a building, but that again was an old, and so it's been reclaimed to the degree that you could build a commercial building on it.
So it's been like, what is it, like 20, 30 years or something?
Yeah, well, you have to get an environmental assessment, and then there's an environmental process that you do to remediate the land. Right. But you still have to do more if you want it to be residential. So I don't know the classifications on that, but our environmental permit allows us to build a commercial business. So, or building. But I'm like, okay, we're not building the building. I still own the land. I'm going to put a farm up there. I'm going to make an urban farm up there, partner with somebody that wants to do that has the skill and technique. And I've already got people through the Fed Urban Society that will give us the information and I already know how to do it because I have that knowledge,
of course,
source. I don't have the knowledge, but we're going to go do that, which then is going to, and at this stage, it's beyond novelty. Like I think we sold like $150,000 last year in veg, right? So, and it's not like we're competing with the farms. Like those farms are all selling out. But the problem with it is, and now we've got more infrastructure because we've, through the mustard seed, and then there's a like a hub. Like a veg hub. I can't remember the name of it's escaping me in the moment, but it is a group that puts together excess growth from farms, and they make it I think it's Island Farm Hub, I think it's called.
Yeah, they keep talking about putting more. I've been to a couple of meetings where they're proposing them out in the central Saanich and a few other places, and the food hubs where farmers can bring and process their food and have a market for it there.
That's right.
Not making it a market, but having that as your distribution center.
Yeah, like the idea of making sure that all of our farming is economically viable. Yeah. I mean, a farm, generally speaking, isn't, but we need it to be, because we also need all the food to be going to the places where people need to eat. So the food bank, and I was at the conference recently where I was speaking on a panel with the director of the mustard seed, who's going to be on our podcast hopefully in the next couple of weeks, to talk about the subject. But the need, I think it's year over year, it's up 30%.
Wow.
And we've got the segment of, this isn't just people, living on the street, we're talking about employed people.
Yeah, with young families who just need help with their grocery bill.
Exactly. Right? So the ramifications of what's happening south of us, the fact that we're probably a decade or 2 decades behind where we needed to be about worrying about food security, also food waste, is now we're here. So all action needs to be applied to getting this going, building out infrastructure. Like we don't have the availability to grow enough food for us to eat, but we can make a huge dent in it, because if our food supply gets cut off, sure, there's things that we can make bread, and I'm talking about having a balanced, nutritious diet.
Yeah.
And having local food that is, climate, because this is also climate action too, because we don't have to transport. Like majority of all food, everything, the biggest cost is transportation, right? Like moving it. Like you think about, okay, how do we get vegetables from Mexico to here? It comes
all by truck
or train or boat.
And they're refrigerated trucks. And produce is radiated, so it makes a trip. I mean, there's so many bad practices that we do right now that we're on the cusp of having the ability to change all that.
Yeah. The 4 turnings of life, right? And now we're here. What's going to come out of it is we're going to fix all these problems, because it's going to be forced upon us to fix it. How ugly it gets in the interim is the big question. So how can we as business people and people on the island think about it? And basically we need to start shifting our thought process away from, supporting the algorithm into like, hey, how can I support the community? And it also is better too, because then you're not worried about all these big things that are going to happen. You're going to just be focused on trying to make our community resilient.
Yeah.
And as business people, we need to be looking at, reducing debt, supporting local, and we talk about buying Canadian. It's all stuff we should be doing all the time, even for all the reasons: environment, resiliency, community, all of that
And
is
it feels better when you do. I mean,
there's no question it feels better.
I mean, I'm not going to go to a McDonald's when I can go to a Big Wheel, right? It's
Yeah.
like I wouldn't go to a Tim Hortons when
Or
I could go
Starbucks
to a
before
local.
Jazz or Tim Hortons.
Yeah. Well, Tim Hortons isn't a Canadian company.
No, exactly.
Right.
Right. I think, in the mix, because obviously Canadians work in these companies, so but it's a balance and a mix. The money that's going to stay in the communities is where you need it first, and then rather than the local businesses pick up the excess, have the international businesses pick up the excess, where the primary supplier of all this stuff is local. Right. So then you could actually really keep the money local, stays local, supports local. And then there's more incentive to build infrastructure locally. Right. For businesses and investment.
And that's infrastructure. I mean, since I was a teenager, I've been saying, it feels like since then, like why are we as British Columbians exporting our raw logs?
Yeah.
That was a huge topic in the 80s.
Oh my God. I did a business plan on logging and building, value added exports.
Right. I mean, we just send them off raw and then we buy them back processed, where we have so much ability to process everything here.
Yeah.
We send away our electricity, our water, our logs, our fish, and then we buy them all back in some other form. And we've been doing that forever.
Yeah.
And we're wrong for doing that.
Yeah. 100%.
And so whatever we're facing in terms of possible tariffs and trade wars with the U.S., we set that up a long time ago.
100%. And it's out of awareness, maybe a little bit of laziness, convenience, obviously, like complacency. And so now we're going to have to do a bit of work.
Or maybe it's a little bit more nefarious. Who knows? Maybe.
Listen, don't even think about nefarious BS, because guess what? That is what distracts people. Like these conspiracy theories, all this stuff. Sure, whatever. They've been talking about these conspiracy theories for 1,000 years.
And now we have an oligarchy in the U.S. Capitol that has been called a conspiracy theory for decades, and now that's real.
Yeah,
and
100%.
so exporting the logs as a nefarious process, say, and not adding tertiary value to them. Like, why wouldn't? There's no logical explanation why Canada wouldn't, unless we're just feeding the coffers of the Americans.
Yes, they're sure, but that's not a conspiracy. That's fact, right? Like,
sure,
they have an economic interest in not allowing us to do that kind of stuff, right? So, who would be the biggest advocate or the biggest voice of it, and how would they do that? So, those things, as much as they would lean into a conspiracy thing, like, are just practical. Like, it just makes sense that would be their plan.
It's still nefarious to take our raw products and our potential and steal our potential away and then sell it back to us.
But is it stealing if we give it to them?
Those are trade agreements that the people don't have much say in. So
I
wouldn't give them away.
Vote. Like, and inspire, like, obviously there's actions we can do, but basically what it is individuals taking positions and doing something about it. That's the only way you make change.
You got to vote with your wallet.
Yeah, vote with your
Always
wallet.
Vote with your wallet.
Remember that the world may be falling down, but how you find peace and clarity and grounding is in your own community. Because everything else is happening around us, we have zero control of, so why spend any time on it? And then just remember where you spend your dollars, who you're supporting, and what they are supporting. Because there's a group of people that every single person in this country is supporting in one way, shape, or form, that is undermining all of our own interests and actively working against our own needs and interests.
See, I say that's nefarious. That's why I use the term.
I know, but the problem with it is when you use nefarious, you stop talking about fact, right? So this is a fact. This is happening factual. So the action plan is factual. When you say conspiracy or nefarious, it's like abstract. Like, it's actually factual.
Okay, it's bad.
Yeah, it's bad, and it's bad. So because I think there needs to be action, and that, these are real facts that need to be responded to by real action. And that's where we will wrap up.
Is it too early to say Victory Garden?
Victory Garden?
Victory Garden. You plant your own garden. How in England,
we can help with that. The Fed Urban Agriculture has planter boxes that we can sell you and set up and give you knowledge and it goes to support. You get a charity receipt as well.
Is there a good contact for that?
Getfed.ca is our website, and we'll be posting all this in the next coming couple weeks on our social media channels.
Great. I'm already got all my seedlings. I'm starting my seedlings now for my Victory Garden this year.
Victory Garden. Let's
Victory Garden.
trademark that. I love it.
It's the English did it in the Second World War. And
that's right. So we copied it.
Building
Guess
Victory
what?
Gardens.
History repeats itself.
Yeah.
Victory
and then
Garden.
It rhymes.
Yeah, Victory Garden.
Yeah, Victory Garden.
Oh, we're gonna do that. I love it.
And that's how we are going to be victorious in our own little lives.
Yeah, and we're going to make the world better. We're going to be happier. We're going to be less distracted, and we'll probably sleep better.
I'm going to sleep better after having this conversation anyway, Calen.
Love you, Sam.
Love you too, man. You have a great day.
Be kind.
I will if you be nice.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bread and Butter Collective's membership includes the following local businesses: 2% Jazz, Bunny's Kitchen, Buzz Coffee House, Eagle-Ite, Big Wheel Burger, Blue Mountain Solutions, Bodega Tapas Wine Bar, Eva Schnitzel House, Farmsgate Foods and Catering, Victoria Chocolate and Company, Drum Roaster Coffee, Habit Coffee, Foo Asian Street Food, the Culinary Arts Program at Camosun, Cafe Fantastico, Fall Epi, Harold Street Brewworks, Hey Happy, House of Botang, Nikkei Ramen Ya, Jenny Marie's Cracker Company, La Pasta, La Rue Patisserie, Mocha House, Part and Parcel, Poco a Pinto Bar, Pizzeria Prima Strada, Keating Pizza, Roast, Table 9 Consulting, Sherwood Cafe and Bar, Sweets by Selena, The Collective Wine Bar and Kitchen, The Drake, Tapa Bar, The Nimble Bar Company, Ruth and Dean, The Whole Beast, The Wienery, Spoon's Diner, Truffles-inspired catering, and Zambries.
To hear more from the Bread and Butter Collective, go to checknews.ca/podcasts on Check Plus, or find us on your favorite podcasting platform.